In a charged and impassioned rally speech, Michelle Obama recently took the stage in Cazoo, Michigan, unleashing an intense critique of Donald Trump's time in office and the dangers she believes he poses should he return. Known for her dignified public persona, Michelle set aside her characteristic restraint and instead delivered a blunt message, fiercely calling out Trump's track record on social issues, his pandemic response, his apparent disregard for democratic norms, and what she describes as his gross incompetence. She didn't just stop at criticizing Trump. Michelle also passionately advocated for Vice President Kamala Harris, painting a vivid contrast between Harris's vision for a more stable, forward-looking America and what she called Trump's chaotic leadership. Through her words, Michelle Obama reminded the audience that this election is about more than choosing a leader. It's about protecting democracy, safeguarding rights, and shaping the future of America. Let's dive deeper into her address, from her biting critiques to her heartfelt appeals, and see why this rally speech is being remembered as one of her most impactful public addresses. The importance of strong, stable leadership. Michelle Obama began by stressing a concept central to her speech: the critical need for a leader who is both grounded and mature, someone who embodies dignity and a genuine commitment to the people. For her, that leader is Kamala Harris. Michelle presented Harris as the embodiment of stability, a figure who has consistently faced tough questions, owned her decisions, and engaged with a diverse array of communities to understand their unique challenges. Kamala Harris, she argued, symbolizes a new era of leadership focused on tackling the issues of today with transparency and integrity. Harris doesn't shy away from difficult conversations, nor does she seek to avoid accountability. Qualities Michelle emphasized are essential in an age of misinformation and polarization. Michelle contrasted Harris's demeanor with Trump's, arguing that, unlike Trump, Harris has the maturity and fresh ideas needed to take America forward. In Michelle's eyes, Harris is the only candidate offering a clear set of policies. She pointed out that Harris has taken practical steps toward lowering healthcare costs, tackling drug prices, and addressing economic inequalities, policies that Michelle says are rooted in a genuine concern for the welfare of all Americans. As Michelle painted this picture of Harris, she reminded her audience that the stakes couldn't be higher. America, she said, needs a leader with vision and empathy, someone who understands the daily struggles of ordinary Americans. Critique of Trump's pandemic response. Michelle's speech quickly turned to one of the most painful and defining events of Trump's presidency, the COVID-19 pandemic. Here, she was blunt in her assessment of Trump's handling of the crisis. "My husband left him a very detailed pandemic plan," she told the crowd, recounting how the Obama administration had put in place a guide to help manage potential viral outbreaks. But Trump, Michelle said, chose to ignore that plan, dismissing the need for coordinated action and scientific guidance, which she argued had tragic consequences. According to Michelle, Trump's approach was marked by downplaying the virus and disregarding the recommendations of public health experts. In her view, Trump's decisions contributed to the United States having one of the highest death tolls among wealthy nations. For Michelle, the pandemic response became the ultimate measure of Trump's readiness to lead, and a failure that, she suggested, speaks volumes about his priorities and capabilities. His failures had real costs, she said somberly, noting that while other countries were seeing recovery, the U.S. faced a staggering loss of jobs, a disruption in schooling, and a wave of mental health challenges among young people. Michelle didn't mince words when describing the personal toll these policies had on American families. Parents lost children, businesses shuttered, and communities grieved. These were more than just numbers to Michelle. They were lives, each one affected, in her view, by a lack of coherent leadership. Her message was clear. Trump's pandemic response, or lack thereof, is a reflection of his inability to manage crises or care for the American people in times of profound need. Social divides and policy rollbacks. Michelle's critique didn't end with the pandemic. She expanded her focus to other policies that, under Trump's administration, she argued eroded hard-won rights and protections for vulnerable communities. She spoke about reproductive rights, which have come under threat from judges and justices appointed by Trump, stripping away decades of progress for women seeking autonomy over their health and lives. To Michelle, this rollback in reproductive rights represents a larger pattern of Trump's administration undermining social equality. Michelle also brought up Trump's approach to the LGBTQ+ community, suggesting that his policies actively curtail their freedoms and endangered their safety. She painted a picture of a leader who was out of touch with the challenges faced by marginalized communities, a person whose policies amplified division instead of fostering unity. In addition, she highlighted Trump's treatment of the Black Lives Matter movement and his response to racial justice protests, portraying him as a leader who, rather than supporting equal justice, chose to incite division and inflame tensions. Through these examples, Michelle reminded the audience that social policies are not abstract concepts, they're lived realities. In her view, Trump's presidency symbolized a return to outdated attitudes and a government willing to turn its back on citizens who are struggling. For Michelle, these issues are not just political, they are deeply personal, reflecting her own commitment to equality and the rights of all Americans. January 6th, a dark day in American history. In one of the most memorable segments of her speech, Michelle spoke about the events of January 6, 2021, calling it a dark and sobering day for American democracy. She described Trump's reaction to losing the 2020 election, accusing him of actively seeking to overturn the will of the American people. The insurrection, Michelle argued, wasn't a spontaneous outburst, but a deliberate act incited by Trump's refusal to concede. He tried to steal it back, she said bluntly, alluding to Trump's efforts to challenge the election results and his encouragement of the Capitol riots. For Michelle, the insurrection was a shocking example of a leader placing his own political future above the safety and well-being of the nation. She cited reports that when Trump was informed his Vice President, Mike Pence, was in real danger during the riots, he responded with indifference. According to Michelle, Trump's response, "So what?" epitomized his complete disregard for the democratic process and for the lives of his colleagues and constituents. Michelle's words conveyed a sense of betrayal, both as an American and as someone who has witnessed the peaceful transfer of power firsthand. For her, the events of January 6th were a dangerous departure from the democratic values that have long defined the United States. She urged her audience to remember the gravity of that day, to see it not as a blip, but as a warning of what's at stake should Trump return to office. Addressing the men in the room, a call to action. Toward the end of her speech, Michelle Obama made a direct appeal to the men in the audience, urging them to consider the broader consequences of their political choices. "Your rage does not exist in a vacuum," she said, calling on men to think about the impact their vote could have on the women and children in their lives. Michelle argued that a vote for Trump is a vote against the rights, safety, and health of American women. She didn't shy away from the raw emotion of this message, asking men to reflect on whether they were willing to support a leader who, in her view, had consistently shown contempt for women's rights. Michelle's message was not only a call to men to make choices with empathy, but also a reminder to women to stand up and demand better. She urged women to use their voices, to be vocal with the men in their lives about the issues that affect them directly. "Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment," she said, emphasizing that women deserve leaders who respect their autonomy and value their contributions to society. Why Kamala Harris? The case for a new future. Finally, Michelle dedicated a part of her speech to Kamala Harris, offering a vision of what she believes the vice president could bring to America if given a chance to lead. Michelle described Harris as someone who genuinely listens, someone who cares deeply about the concerns of everyday Americans. She highlighted Harris's policy focus on lowering costs, making healthcare accessible, and tackling the root causes of economic inequality. To Michelle, Harris represents a new generation of leadership, a leader who isn't afraid to address difficult issues and is committed to making a tangible difference. Harris, she said, is the only candidate in this race who has outlined a clear set of policies, and her approach is grounded in both compassion and pragmatism. For Michelle, Harris is the candidate who understands the true meaning of public service, someone who sees leadership as a duty to uplift the American people, not as a means of personal gain. In her fiery rally speech, Michelle Obama didn't just criticize Trump. She presented a vision for a different future, one where America is led by someone who embodies empathy, strength, and competence. Through her impassioned words, she reminded Americans that their vote has the power to shape the future of democracy, to protect hard-won rights, and to bring about meaningful change. Her message was clear. This election is about more than just politics. It's about protecting the soul of America. As she urged the audience to stand with Kamala Harris and reject Trump, Michelle's words left a lasting impact, a call to remember that the decisions we make today will define the nation we leave behind for generations to come.